Hello, class. Today I will be discussing pattern evidence, which includes shoe prints, tire prints, firearms, and tool marks. Classification of pattern evidence. Pattern evidence can be classified into three categories: patterns for identification, patterns for individualization, and patterns for reconstruction. Patterns for identification are used to identify objects and people. Humans are able to identify objects by their shape and pattern. For example, tables come in all different sizes, but humans identify a table by its pattern, which is a flat top with four legs. Patterns for individualization are characteristics of evidence that can be unique among the members of their class. This is one of the most important elements of the investigation. For example, a particular tire makes a particular tire print, and a particular shoe makes a particular shoe print. Same with glass. A person could tell where a piece of glass came from by putting the pieces together. Patterns for reconstruction help create theories of the evidence that occurred at the scene. Reconstruction patterns include glass fractures, furniture and objects at the scene, tracks, trails, trajectories of projectiles, skid marks in auto accidents, and more. For example, fracture patterns in glass can help determine what caused the breakage. Ripped clothes and scattered objects at the scene indicate there was a struggle. Projectile trajectories can help reconstruct the position of the weapon and the target. Tire skid marks help determine the direction and speed the vehicle was going before an accident. Shoe and tire prints. Many shoe and tire prints are alike. For shoe prints, it is important to consider the sole pattern, manufacturer, size, and types of shoe. It is highly unlikely that two people's shoes would share all the same characteristics. Same with tires. It is important to consider the brand, model, and size. The examiner could also compare the wear and tear of the item. Sole or tire pattern features wear down in non-uniform ways. Parts of the sole or tire can be cut or torn by wear. Foreign objects can make unusual marks in the sole or tire material, and so on. To make a positive match of the shoe print, the examiner could take a picture of the shoe print and then make an impression of the suspect's shoe onto a piece of plastic or paper bag to compare the two. The examiner can do the same with tire tracks. Another way is casting, but it is important to take pictures before because casting can destroy the evidence. Collection and preservation of shoe and tire prints. Indentation marks are filled with dental stone. This is a special finely ground plaster used by dentists to make molds for restorations. It is mixed with water to make a pancake batter consistency mixture, then poured into the indentation so as not to disturb any of the detail present. Once it hardens, it captures the fine detail of the print quite well. The collector then scratches a case number or item number into the dental stone. It is important to store the casting separately so it does not break or pieces get chipped off. Firearms. For firearms, bullets are examined. A bullet comparison is accomplished by comparing the caliber of a projectile to a possible firearm manufacturer. The use of rifling in the barrel of firearms has not only improved accuracy and range, it has had the added benefit of imparting macroscopic and microscopic markings onto the fire projectiles. By examining the grooves on the bullet, the examiner could determine if a particular class of the weapon is involved in the case. If fired projectiles cannot be found, cartridges castings can be used. On the back end of the cartridge casing, as marking placed by the manufacturer, these are called head stamp. The head stamp includes information such as caliber of the cartridge and manufacturer. Breech face markings must also be found on cartridges casings, which can also determine what kind of firearm was used. Collection and preservation of firearms evidence. Gloves should always be worn when collecting evidence. That way, evidence does not get contaminated by fingerprints. Fire projectiles and cartridges casings also need to be protected from damage and change. Every time metal strikes or rubs against other metals, new marks could occur. Therefore, all items should be packaged separately or wrapped in cotton or tissues. Firearms should be unloaded before they are stored and noted if the hammer was cocked or down, if the safety was on or off, and if the cartridge under the hammer was live or have been fired. If firearms are submerged underwater, they should be stored in a bucket full of the same water to avoid a chemical reaction. Water should give enough cushion so the weapon should not fire. Therefore, there is no need to unload the firearm. Tool marks. If a hard object or tool comes into contact with a softer object, it will leave a mark. Since tools such as screwdrivers and crowbars are machined objects, they will have individual characteristics from the manufacturing process that can be tied to markings left behind when the tool was used. Tool marks without tools are useless. Tools are needed for comparisons because a suspect tool is needed to make a mark. The examiner will make test marks using the suspect's tool and compare them to the evidence tool mark. This process could be difficult because a tool can be used in several ways, causing different shapes and appearances of the tool marks. Collection and preservation of tool marks. Small items could be packaged, but castings are needed for bigger items. All evidence should be packaged separately so they can be kept away from each other to preserve them and labeled. The examiner will conduct the analysis of tool marks in the same manner as they do firearm evidence, by making a test mark with the suspect's tool and then using the comparison microscope to compare that mark to the evidence mark. Admissibility issues in court. The field photographer should capture all potential evidence before it is removed from the scene. The evidence recorder makes sure all photographs and potential evidence are logged, appropriately collected, sealed, and labeled. A simple mistake from a field scientist, like not wearing gloves, not photographing evidence before collecting it, or failing to mark the location where the evidence was found, could render evidence inadmissible in court. And that concludes my presentation for today.